On the night of 27th December 1948, the world's largest passenger aircraft, Douglas DC-3, was flying from Miami to Florida. The aircraft had 125 passengers and 9 crew members. A total of 134 people were on board. At an altitude of about 8,300 feet above the North Atlantic Ocean, the aircraft was sailing at a pace of 180 miles per hour. It was 8:13 at night. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Miller and his co-pilot were looking at everything normally. But suddenly, their contact with San Juan Air Traffic Control, or ATC, began to weaken. Captain Miller reported that he was facing a minor technical problem. This was his last call. Within 10 seconds of this, the aircraft disappeared from the ATC radar forever. The last location of the aircraft was right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. What happened that night was far more terrible than a technical malfunction. The aircraft was stuck in one of the most mysterious places in the world, in one of the corridors of the Bermuda Triangle, which no one had ever heard of or seen before. As soon as the blink of an eye, the aircraft began to scream. Captain Miller tried to control the plane with all his might, but it was too late by then. The storm had taken hold of the entire aircraft and was spinning it like a toy. All the electronic equipment of the plane, compass, radar, everything was shut down. The aircraft was no longer under the control of any human being. It was flying blindly at the speed of the storm. After diving for about half an hour in that deadly whirlpool, when the aircraft came out of the storm, there was only an endless sea all around. The plane's engines were still not working and it was slowly falling down. Then the co-pilot's eyes fell on an island in front of him. It was an unknown, untouched island. Everyone knew that their death was just a few moments away. The plane crashed into a huge old tree on that island. Hundreds of thick branches of the tree trapped the plane like a net, and this was the miracle that saved the lives of 134 people. The passengers' lives were saved by getting stuck in the tree of the plane, but it was a painful beginning. There were cries and cries coming from inside the plane. Captain Robert Miller, whose head was hit by a panel, came to his senses as soon as he woke up. He immediately calmed people down. A retired army doctor on board the plane, Evelyn Reed, started taking care of the injured without wasting time. A total of 10 people were seriously injured. Someone's arm was broken, someone's leg, so 2 people had deep wounds on their heads. The rest of the people were in shock but were safe. When everyone slowly got off the plane, they felt where they were stuck. It was an island that was not on any map. There was dense forest all around, strange trees and plants, and an unknown silence. The first and biggest challenge was water. Everyone was thirsty, but there was no sign of any river, waterfall, or clean water source on the entire island. Their only hope now was rainwater. Using his experience, Captain Miller divided the people into groups. One group was given the task of getting food, medicines, and other essential items from the cockpit. The other group joined the captain to make a permanent shelter for the night. They used the broken seats of the plane, metal sheets, and large leaves to make a workable roof that could save them from the cold and possible rain at night. On the first night, when they sat together, they had only one question in their hearts. Will someone come to find them? Will they ever be able to get out of this unknown place? The next morning, they faced a new challenge: the lack of food and the technique of lighting a fire. The little food they got from the plane was not going to last for long. They had to find food on the island, but there was no way to know which fruit was poisonous and which was edible. In this attempt, an old man ate an unknown fruit and died in a few hours. This was the first death on the island that shook everyone to the core. After this incident, people began to fear and struggle for limited food, but Captain Miller and Dr. Evelyn handled the situation. That same evening, a boy named Kishore, who was interested in science, used his spectacular lens to focus the rays of the sun on the dry leaves. After hours of hard work, a thin line of smoke rose from the leaves, and then a small flame rose. Fire. This was no less than a victory for them. Fire was not only necessary to cook food, but it could also keep wild animals away at night. In the meantime, an engineer named Arthur Vance tried to fix the broken radio on the plane. After a lot of hard work, he was able to send a weak signal. He sent a message for his last location and help, but there was no answer from the front. The radio's battery was dead, and the only means of communication was also broken. Days passed. When after 10 days there was no sign of rescue, 4 boys and a girl's patience paid off. One night when everyone was sleeping, they quietly got off the plane with a small boat made of the hull of the plane. They never returned. What happened to them? Where did they go? This remained a mystery. After the departure of those 5 people, the remaining people realized that they would have to stay here for a long time. Captain Miller gathered everyone and proposed to make a permanent facility. Work was divided. One team went to the jungle to collect food and fruit every day. The other team worked to make the refuge stronger and repair it.
Dr. Evelyn and some other people took care of the injured and the sick. On the other hand, the American government started the biggest search operation. The Atlantic Ocean was searched thoroughly, but not a single piece of the plane was found. After a week of continuous search, when no clue was found, the operation slowed down. Meanwhile, the remaining people on the island started learning the art of living. They scratched the rocks and the metal of the plane to make tools like knives and spears. The biggest challenge was the wild boars of the island, who lived in groups and attacked their camp at night. There was also a hunting trainer on the plane who taught people to shoot and set traps. After many days of planning and practice, they hunted their first wild boar. It was a terrible and emotional moment. 2 people were injured during the hunt, but when they returned to the camp with the prey, it was not just food, it was the victory of their unity and determination. They wrote "Help" in big letters on the sand from the broken coconut shells on the shore of the island, in the hope that maybe a passing plane or aircraft would see it. Friends, how do you like this story? Are you able to feel that pain and struggle? If yes, then please take a second and like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Your one subscription gives me the courage to bring more such true and heartbreaking stories to you. And yes, there's a new hype button next to the comments section. If the story is really touching the heart, then do press it too. Come on, let's move on to that painful journey. 6 months had passed. For the outside world, NZ-16002 aircraft and 134 people on board had remained as an unsolved puzzle. After spending $45 million, the U.S. government officially stopped the search operation and declared everyone missing. Their families were told that there was no hope of their loved ones returning. But here, on this unknown island, a new community was being born. Those who were seriously injured were slowly recovering under the care of Dr. Evelyn and started getting involved in small things. But during this time, due to illness and despair, some more people died. Not seeing any way to survive, many people mentally broke down and they gave up. Now there were only 114 people left on the island. They started burying their dead with respect and became each other's mental support. At night, when everyone would gather around the fire, they would tell stories of their old lives, sing songs. About 1.5 years later, for the first time on the island, a child's cry echoed. A healthy son was born to a young couple. The birth of that child brought a new hope for every person on the island. 2 years passed. During this time, they had learned to live on the island. They had started small farms and invented new ways to catch fish. But the desire to return to the civilized world was still running in their hearts. Under the leadership of engineer Arthur Vance, everyone decided to build a big ship. This was their biggest and most ambitious project. After months of hard work, they used pieces of aircraft, wood, and beams to build a very strong ship. The day they launched the ship into the sea, it was no less than a festival. 25 of the strongest and most experienced people were boarded on that ship with the promise that they would return with help. The ship sailed fine for a few miles from the island, but then the weather showed its true colors. Suddenly, black clouds surrounded the sky and a terrible storm engulfed their ship. High waves turned the ship upside down. Only a few people were able to reach the shore of the island, but in that accident, 16 people lost their lives. This was the biggest shock on the island so far. 15 people had already died of illness and despair, and now this accident took 16 more lives. A total of 31 people had died, and 5 had already fled. Now only 98 people were left on the island. This incident shattered their faith in survival. Many people believed that this island would be their grave, and that trying to get out of here would be like inviting death. 5 years had passed. This was their world for the children who were born on the island. They had never seen cars, electricity, or a city. Adults used to tell them stories of their old world, which was no less than a fairy tale for those children. But with time, there were gaps in society. Natural resources of the island, such as a special kind of fruitful trees and small animals, began to decrease. The lack of food created tension among the people. Now they were divided into 2 groups. One group, led by Captain Miller, still believed that they should try to get out of here at any cost. The other group, led by a desperate man, believed that this was their fate and that they should forget the outside world and settle on this island, because every attempt to get out had only led to death. Meanwhile, in search of food, he went to the inner part of the island where he found something that made his face stand. He found the ruins of an ancient, broken civilization, and near those ruins, in a cave, he found a human skull. Near the skull, there was a small piece of metal that looked like a part of an old plane. This was proof that they were not the first people to land on this island. The mystery of the Bermuda Triangle was even deeper. Was there a curse of this island? Does everyone who comes here dies here? These questions scared them even more. 7 years had passed. In these 2 years, 16 more people died due to stress, lack of food, and diseases.
Now their number had decreased to only 82. People had almost given up on life. They were just spending their days. It seemed that things couldn't get any worse than this, but they were wrong. On an afternoon of the 8th year, a terrible cyclone hit the island. Strong winds and heavy rains destroyed the crops that had been grown for a long time. Everything that they had grown was scattered. Their will to live was completely broken. They were sitting under the open sky, sweating and trembling, and thinking that maybe it's over now. Just a few weeks after the cyclone, when they were just about to rise, the island shook with a powerful earthquake. The ground was shaking like it was going to explode. The mountains were breaking and falling. The trees were falling from the roots. Everyone was running around to save their lives. This earthquake was devastating, but unknowingly, it was going to be the reason for their prosperity. Due to the earthquake, the plane's deck, which had been lying in one place for years, slipped out of its place, and some wires and wires under it came out. No one knew that this small incident was going to be the end of their 9-year pain. A few days after the earthquake, when everything calmed down, engineer Arthur Wentz was examining the broken deck. That's when he noticed the radio on the plane, which was now lying on a different corner. At the same time, according to scientists, an extreme solar storm, which is called a solar flare, arose, which affected the Earth's magnetic field. This was a rare incident. Maybe because of this incident or the connection of the wires that were shaken by the earthquake, a miracle happened. When Arthur pressed a switch on the radio, a slight crackling sound came out of it. His heartbeat increased. He joined the remaining wires of the battery with trembling hands, and for the first time in 9 years, the green light of the radio lit up. He immediately picked up the mic and said in a trembling voice, "Mayday! Mayday! Mayday! This is flight NC16002. Is anyone listening? We are alive. We have been stuck on an island for 9 years." On the other hand, in the air traffic control of Miami, when Arthur heard this message, he could not believe his ears. He thought it was a joke. But when Arthur told the registration number, the name of the captain, and the date of the flight, there was silence in the entire control room. The U.S. government immediately started the rescue operation again. At that time, satellite technology was not so advanced that they could track the location. They only knew that the plane was somewhere around the Bermuda Triangle. They decided to search each island in the Bermuda Triangle again. On the other hand, a new ray of hope awoke in the people on the island. They lit a big fire day and night and kept smoking so that the rescue team could see them. 9 years. It had been 9 years. One morning, when the remaining 82 people of the island woke up, one of them saw a small dome on the far horizon. That dome was slowly growing. It was a ship. It was a ship of the U.S. Navy that had come in search of them.
Seeing that ship, 9 years of suppressed pain, suffering, and waiting flowed out in a flood of tears. People were screaming happily, crying, hugging each other. They were running on the sand, shouting, "We are saved! We are saved!" When the rescue team landed on the island, they were stunned to see the scene there. Those who the world had considered dead 9 years ago, they were standing in front of them today, tired, weak, but alive. The story of their return shook the whole world. It was an unbelievable story of human endurance and the desire to live. The families who had given up the hope of returning to their loved ones, they were meeting them today. Those moments were so emotional that they cannot be described in words. This story has become a legend in America, which is still in the hearts of people today. Exactly 1 year later, in 1958, the famous writer James Baldwin wrote a book based on the experiences of these survivors, whose name was lost in the echo, the 9-year survival of Flight NC-16002. This book became one of the most popular books in America. It was not just a story, it was a painful story of those 82 souls who gave up death for 9 years and taught us that even a small ray of hope can tear the darkest darkness.